Each year, as Thanksgiving approaches, Washington State gets split in two. A line drawn in the sand over a century ago, a rivalry that pits friend against friend, neighbor against neighbor, cats against dogs. The Apple Cup.
Still has the football after the play fake, going into the end zone. Wants Davis or Bobo. Touchdown, Washington State!
Named after the state's famous apple harvest, the very first Apple Cup was played in Seattle in the year 1900 and resulted in a bizarre 5-5 tie. Since then, there have been 106 editions of the game played both here in Seattle as well as in Pullman. The Huskies have proved statistically stronger of the two sides, winning 68 games, while the Cougars have only won 32. There have been 6 ties in the 114 years of the Apple Cup, but since the rule change in 1995, the NCAA will no longer allow stalemates in college football. History books may favor UW, but this is certainly a game where the teams leave their record in the locker room and step out onto the field with a passion that cannot be dampened by numbers. Anything can happen.
So 1st and 10 at the 25. Cowan back, throws, Price is going to be right there and pick it off. And as you say, that's the football game.
Enter 1982, the era of Don James. His team had beaten the Cougars the last 7 years. His team had just beaten number 10 UCLA and number 3 ASU. His team was in the top 5 in the nation, and his team lost. That year, the Cougs had only won 2 games the entire season, and the game got billed as a blowout in the making. However, for the first time in 32 years, the game was to be played on WSU's campus as opposed to Joe Albi Stadium in Spokane. Head coach of the Cougars, Jim Walden, had been quoted earlier in the season saying, "Nothing in my job, not the Rose Bowls, not the Holiday Bowls, nothing is more important than beating the University of Washington." And that held very true for the Cougars on that day 32 years ago. The Huskies have been Rose Bowl hopefuls, and the Cougars had been bottom of the barrel in the Pac-10. But after a 4-point loss, the Huskies' chances at Rose Bowl glory were dashed, and the Cougars were ecstatic. An entire season washed from a memory by a win at the Apple Cup. A summation of this sentiment can be seen in numerous bars around Pullman today, where pieces of the 1982 goalpost can still be found after it was torn down by WSU fans charging the field after the game. The Apple Cup had to be postponed a week following the assassination of JFK. When the two teams did meet, the Huskies came out on top 14-0, propelling them into the Rose Bowl.
And Siler gets the Huskies across for the first touchdown with a lateral to Dave Copay. Tolliver again with a razzle-dazzle lateral to Jim Warren that has 96,000 fans fooled. He's over, and Illinois goes ahead.
Last year, on a foggy Black Friday, the first Apple Cup was played at the new Husky Stadium. Keith Price, with a little help from Bishop Sankey and Austin Safarian-Jenkins, led the Huskies to a 27-17 victory. And on Saturday, November 29th, the Dogs will head east to Pullman for the 107th installation of the Apple Cup. The Huskies are looking good for a bowl berth, while the Cougs are floundering down at the bottom of the table. But as we know from the last 114 years, this one game can write an entire season, as well as define the crap talk for the year. And whether you bark or meow, the Apple Cup represents state pride and getting past differences to celebrate each other's differences. But go Dogs.